Section 11.6, Combining the Rules to Solve Equations. In this section, we will put all the ideas together from the last few sections. Remember, the rule is to get the variable by itself. So I have an equation here, 2x plus 1 is equal to 9. And you can see that to get that variable all by itself, I need to do two things. I need to subtract 1, and I also need to divide by 2. One thing that's very important here, you always want to go through and get rid of the addition or subtraction first before you do anything with the multiplication and division. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to subtract both sides by 1. And I'm showing that right now. Now, when I go through and do that, on the left-hand side, I'm just left with 2x. On the right-hand side, I'm left with 8. So now I just want to be left with the x. I'm going to have to divide both sides by 2. When I do that, the 2's cancel. I'm just left with x. So 8 divided by 2 gives me 4. So my answer is x is equal to 4. As I say, it is very important when you are doing this. If you have multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, you are always going to undo the addition, subtraction first. Let's look at another problem. Here I have 5 subtract 4x is equal to 25. Well, I have 5 subtract that 4x. I do have a 5 on that side. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to subtract that 5 from the left-hand side, which means I need to subtract the 5 from the right-hand side. The 5 subtract 5 cancels out. And remember, that means that really what I have here, that I have a 0. So I have 0 subtract 4x. So I have a negative 4x is equal to 25 subtract 5 gives me 20. I just want to be left with the x, so now I'm going to divide both sides by negative 4. When I do that, the negative 4 divided by the negative 4 cancels out. I'm going to be left with x is equal to negative 5 for my final answer. Let's look at one with fractions. 3/4 x minus 5 is equal to 4. Once again, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of any addition or subtraction that I have, so I'm going to add 5 to both sides. When I do that, I'm going to be left on the left-hand side with 3/4 x, and on the right-hand side, I'm going to be left with 9. Now, I have a fraction that LCD is equal to 4. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 4. 4 times the 3/4 x on the left-hand side and 9 times 4 on the right-hand side. That 4 is really 4 over 1. So when I multiply 4 times 3/4, the 4's cancel. I'm left with 3x is equal to 36. And then I can go through and divide both sides by 3. The 3's cancel. I'm going to be left with x is equal to 12 for my final answer. Here's another problem that looks rather long, but I want to remind you that the very first thing you always need to do is you need to combine any like terms that you might have on either side. So I'm taking a look at that left-hand side and I see I have common terms of 2x and 5x. And remember, the operation in front of that 5x tells me what to do with that. So it's 2x plus 5x. So what I really have is I have 7x subtract 3 on the left-hand side. And I can also combine terms on the right-hand side. I have constants of 7 plus 2. 7 plus 2 gives me 9, so I have 9 plus 4x on that side. Now, I need to work on getting the x's together. And in order to do that, I am going to subtract 4x from both sides. I always work on subtracting the smallest number that I have associated with the x, the 4x from both sides. And the reason I do that is because then I'm going to have a positive number in front of that x. So I have 3x subtract 3 is equal to just 9, because the plus 4x minus 4x cancels out. Now I'm just going to go through like I have been doing, and I'm going to get that x all by itself. I would add 3 to both sides. On the left-hand side, I'm just left with 3x, because the subtract 3, add 3 cancel each other out. On the right-hand side, I'm left with 12, and now I would just divide both sides by 3. When I do that, I get a final answer of x is equal to 4. Remember, for all of these problems, you can always take the answer that you get, put it back into the original problem, and make sure that it works. So let's do that very quickly with this. If x is equal to 4, that means 2 times 4 is equal to 8. I have 8 subtract 3 plus, if x is equal to 4, 5 times 4 gives me 20. So if I were to solve that left-hand side, 8 subtract 3 is 5. 5 plus 20, the left-hand side is equal to 25. If I did all the work right, the other side also has to equal 25. So let's put the 4 in there. And in here I have 7 plus 4 times 4 is 16 plus 2. Let's see, 7 plus 16 gives me 23. 23 plus 2 gives me 25. So yes, 4 did work. Remember, you can always go back in and check to make sure that you do have the correct answer. Here's a problem in which you need to use the distributive property. Distributive property, remember, I need to multiply anything that's inside the set of parentheses by the number that's on the outside. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to multiply 9 times 3x. I'm going to get 27x plus 9 times 2 gives me 18. Subtract 10x. And it's equal to 12x minus 7 on the right-hand side. Now I'm going to take a look at that left-hand side, and I notice that I have some terms that are like terms. 27x subtract 10x gives me 17x. So that left-hand side is 17x plus 18. The right-hand side is still 12x subtract 7. I'm going to work on getting the x's together, so I'm going to go through and subtract 12x from both sides because it's the smaller of those two x terms. So on the left-hand side, I'm left with 5x plus 18. On the right-hand side, and once again, this is where sometimes people make a mistake. Please be careful with this. Remember, 12x subtract 12x gave me a 0. 0 subtract 7 gives me a negative 7. I still need to work on getting that x by itself, so I'm going to subtract 18 from both sides. On the left-hand side, the 18's cancel. I'm left with 5x. On the right-hand side, negative 7 subtract 18. Remember, if you're going to have negative 7 subtract 18, it's the same thing as negative 7 plus a negative 18, which means that you are going to add these absolute values together because they are both the same sign. 7 plus 18 gives me 25, but I need the same sign. So I have 5x is equal to negative 25, and then I'm going to go through and divide both sides by 5. When I do that, I get x is equal to negative 5, which is the final answer. Here's one more example, and once again, I need to use the distributive property. So the very first thing I'm going to do is use that property and rewrite that left-hand side as 3x plus, then 2 times 4x gives me 8x, minus 2 times 3 gives me 6, equals 6x subtract 9. I see that I have some similar terms here, 3x plus 8x. 3x plus 8x gives me 11x, so I have 11x subtract 6 is equal to 6x subtract 9. And now I'm going to try and get those x's together. So I am going to subtract 6x from both sides. When I subtract 6x from both sides, I get 5x subtract 6 is equal to, and now once again remember, 6x subtract 6x gave me a 0. 0 subtract 9 gives me a negative 9. Now I want to work on getting rid of that subtraction of 6 first, so I'm going to add 6 to both sides. When I do that, I get 5x is equal to a negative 3. And now I need to divide both sides by 5. If I divide both sides by 5, on the left-hand side I'm just left with x. On the right-hand side I'm left with negative 3/5. It is certainly possible to get an answer that is not an integer answer, but instead is a fraction. And this is one problem in which the answer is that negative 3/5. This is a section that is very easy to make a mistake in because you are doing so many different calculations. Please be sure to check your final answers by putting your answer back into the original equation and proving that it works. Please let me know how I can help as you are working through this section. Thank you.